In this video, we're going to be thinking about navigating politics. And I think the first question to think about is, well, why can't you just ignore politics? And in fact, when I have conversations about politics in organisations and groups, invariably people will say either I hate politics or, slightly in a righteous way, I don't get involved in politics. Firstly, I suspect you don't hate politics. I suspect what you don't like are overtly political people who are pursuing their own agendas at the expense of other people, and quite rightly so. However, the truth is that whatever organisation you're in, whatever you're doing, you will be involved at some level in politics, whether or not you are controlling your involvement. And as you become more senior, if you do not understand the political landscape that you are operating in, it can be very apparent to those who are more senior than you. And in particular, you will start to find people saying things like, they just haven't quite got what it takes, or I think they've hit their natural level, or even I don't think they've got what it takes to make it here. So understanding the political landscape and navigating it is incredibly important for the success of your career and achieving the goals that you want to achieve. The risk of refusing to engage in politics willfully, actively, is that political decisions are made around you, about you and for you, without you exerting any influence or having any control over the outcome that is going to happen and affect you. I've got a friend who says, hope is not a strategy. You can sit in organisations and hope that things will work out in your favour. You may be lucky. It's unlikely that you will be. But if you take control and you understand and you navigate the politics in a healthy way, you are much more likely to be successful. So when we think about politics, let's start by thinking about the theory. So why do organisations have politics? Why are organisations inherently political places, whether they say they are or they're not? And the truth is, it's because all organisations are human systems. And when you put human beings together, you get unspoken political rules of engagement about how we interact. You find them in your family, you find them in your friendship groups, you find them everywhere that you bring human groups together. The thing about politics in organisations is that they are critical to understand, but very, very difficult to identify until you actually sit back and think about the political landscape you're working in. And I think to start with, what are we talking about when we're talking about politics? Well, there are two types. The one that are completely apparent and the one that most people reject and dislike. And these are unhealthy or bad political behaviours. And you can find the word used Machiavellian, backstabbing, manipulating, self-serving, self-interest. Now you can choose to do those things, but it tends to be a relatively short-lived way of being an effective political operator. Because the thing about navigating politics is there a degree of subtlety that's required. I used to work with a guy who thought that he was highly politically effective. He basically had a t-shirt on that said, I am a very political animal, watch out for me. And that made him, in the short term, and with certain limited numbers of people, quite effective. But because he was known to be highly political and highly self-interested, most people navigated around him to his ultimate disadvantage. The other form of politics, and the one that I really encourage you to think about, a healthy or good politics, good understanding of how people work together, good understanding of how to be effective in an organisation. And here what we're talking about is, yes, advancing yourself, but not by neglecting the interests or overriding the interests of other people. So here what we're really talking about is being politically savvy, we're talking about being street smart, yes, but we're also talking about socialising ideas, collaborating, creating alignment, networking, and managing stakeholders in an efficient and positive way. So that's the theory, but how do we actually think about developing political skills in practice? Now, there are 4 dimensions that we need to think about, and the first is social astuteness. And social astuteness is the ability to read other people, but also having the self-awareness to understand the impact that you have on other people. So when we think about how we navigate political systems, the first place we start with ourselves. And I think it's really important because one of the things we can do is, particularly if we are allergic to the idea of politics, is we can just put our head down and keep doing the things we're doing at the expense of actually learning what's going on around us and how we are impacting others and what other people are doing. So social astuteness. The second skill we need to think about is interpersonal influence, and I've already covered a lot to do with influence in another video. However, what we need to understand is that by building our influencing skills and working with other people effectively, not necessarily just by directing what we want or by telling people what we need, we begin to really build political capital because we're seen as effective operators in a way that is not hostile. The third skill we need to think about is networking. And I've covered how you think about developing networks and how you engage with networks in a separate video. The importance of networks in terms of how you think about navigating the political landscape of your organisation is that if you strategically think about building your network in a way which is not only backward looking but also forward looking and is not just internally focused but also looks beyond your organisation or your immediate department to other key stakeholders, you will begin to develop a much deeper and wider political understanding of the organisation, number one, and number two, have an understanding of the relationships that you need to really focus on and work with to help you help the organisation develop and also help your career advance. The fourth skill you need to think about when we're thinking about navigating the political landscape is what we call apparent sincerity. So why don't we just call it sincerity? Well, I can be incredibly sincere, but I may not come across as such. I can be incredibly insincere, but if I come across as sincere, then that can be quite effective. People are looking to be persuaded when you are open, honest, authentic and sincere. And so when you are engaging with other people, it's important that you try and ensure that your authenticity, your sincerity is apparent to them as well. So really think about those four skills: social astuteness, building influence, using your networks, and actually making sure that when you're engaging with other people, you come across as if you actually mean it. And if you can do that, you will really start to begin to engage and understand how organisational politics is working around you. So what should you think about when you're considering really beginning to build an active approach to navigating your organisational politics in a healthy way? Well, the first thing is, how are you currently operating? What is it you're doing? If you're saying, I don't engage in politics, take a step back and see, well, actually, is that true? And if it is really true, ask yourself, where can I begin to exercise some political abilities in a way that doesn't make me feel uncomfortable, but is going to make me more effective at what I do? The second thing to do is have a look around and see who you can identify with, who is effective within the organisation, and begin to ask yourself, well, what is it that they're doing that makes them effective in navigating the political landscape? Is it that they're great at networking within the organisation? Is it that they're in the right information streams? Is it that they know how to bring people together in a way which can healthily achieve their objectives? And then finally, take a step back and ask yourself, if I have sources of power, if I am able to influence people, am I accidentally giving my power and influence away to other people or allowing other people to take the political benefit of that, thus wasting my own hard work and time because I'm not getting the political capital from the work that I'm doing? So if you let other people take the credit for your work when that's not appropriate, you're giving away your political capital. If you sit silently in meetings because you think you have nothing interesting to say, you're making yourself invisible, which is massively undermining your political capital. As we come to the end of this video, I'd just like you to take a moment to think. Think about your approach to politics. Think about how you work with other people. Think about your social astuteness. Think about your networks. Think about how you would like to be operating so that you have control over your career. By doing that, you're beginning to engage in politics in a healthy way, and that can only be good for your career.